Welcome back to another episode of Your Daily Real Estate. I'm Tristan. Hope you're having a great day today. Listen, this weekend I got a chance to go to Lake Tahoe, and it was pretty fun. It's for our first time there, so I love just relaxing and reading and just learning. And I had an opportunity to talk with my daughter. She's turning 18, and she brought up something that was, I thought, pretty great because I love reading. She brought up history. She brought up Aristotle. And what she brought up was really good because it reminded me of how over the last about 4 years, I've restructured the way I communicate with clients in person during presentations and when I speak publicly. And so I thought it was great. And so this is what we're all about, right? We're always growing. We're always bringing in new things and learning. And it just reminded me of a brilliant tribe, right? It's what we attempt to do there as well with group coaching and coaching in general and community growth. So check us out at brillianttribe.com. And remember, these episodes are meant to be 5 minutes. About 5 minutes, sometimes a little longer. And today's no different. Today I wanted to talk to you about Aristotle and about 3 things that he emphasized on when it came to persuasion. And pay attention to this because this you can use to connect with people faster, better, and have great results in presentations and if you speak publicly as well. And it comes down to these 3. Ready? Ethos, Pathos, and Logos. And I'm going to read some things for you that I wrote out just so that you understand what each one of these are and how to use them and how I use them as well. And I start with, from the 3, Ethos, Pathos, and Logos, I start usually in conversation, in speaking in public, in presentations. I start with pathos. And here's why. Here's what I wrote down. Pay attention. Pathos is the emotional appeal used to persuade an audience by eliciting their emotions. This method aims to connect with the audience on an emotional level, often by telling stories, using vivid language, or presenting scenarios that evoke feelings such as sympathy, anger, or joy. I love this one and I love starting with this one because people remember stories. They always do. I can talk about anything on stage or to a client, and they're going to see me later and they're going to say, Tristan, that story about, oh, Tristan, remember that time you talked about, they're not going to say, well, Tristan, in your marketing, like years later, in your marketing, you mentioned step number 3 being, they're not going to do that. It's just never going to happen. People remember stories because they can relate to them. It elicits similar feelings. It's like, oh, I can envision myself there. That's why you lead with pathos every time. And next is ethos. Let me read what I wrote down for ethos. Ethos refers to the credibility or ethical appeal of the speaker or writer. It involves convincing the audience of the author's trustworthiness and authority on the subject matter. This is achieved by demonstrating knowledge, expertise, and moral character. For example, a speaker might establish ethos by highlighting their experience or qualifications related to the topic at hand. And so this is where you would say in a presentation, you would say, Mrs. Seller or Mrs. Buyer, and then you'd show your experience, or you'd show your reviews, or you'd show your brokerage experience. You would show what you've done, who you've helped. That's ethos. So you tell the story, and then you say, this is my background. This is why we had that experience. This is who I am, right? And it creates that sense of trust. You don't lead with that. And a lot of agents lead with that. They're like, well, this is who I am. Now let me tell you a story. Let's engage people first. Pathos, right? Pathos, then ethos, and then lastly is logos. And let me read to you what logos is. Here, logos refers to the logical appeal or the use of reasoning and evidence to persuade an audience. This involves constructing a well-reasoned argument supported by facts, statistics, and logical reasoning. Logos appeals to the audience's rationality and intellect, encouraging them to agree with the speaker based on logical conclusions. For example, and you can definitely relate to this one, here it is, for example, citing data or using logical analogies to support an argument are ways to employ logos effectively. Now, as I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about my presentations to my clients listing or buying, this is where I bring in statistics. This is where I show NAR numbers. This is where I show numbers for the current market, numbers for what we've done specifically, or how buyers are doing in this market, or sellers, what properties are selling for. These are numbers that support everything else you've said, that support that story, that support the pathos and the ethos and where you want to go, right? And sometimes we forget to include one of these. In fact, I would say most of us forget to, I don't know why, but most of us forget to tell that story. Most of us forget to start with pathos. And this is probably the most empowering thing you can do in a presentation, to connect through the story. Connect through your story. Connect through the stories of other people that you've helped. That'll open up the doors quickly. But don't forget the other pieces. Anyway, that's what I remembered over the weekend. I had this great conversation, and I remember going through it. I'm like, man, I remember when I learned this. This was great. In fact, I looked at and analyzed other speakers, other great speakers, and I realized they do the same thing. And it doesn't just have to be one cycle of this. It's not just pathos, ethos, logos. It's like pathos, ethos, logos, and then again, all three, and then again, all three, and then again, all three. It's a cycle within a whole speech or pitch or presentation. That's the beautiful part. Try it, use it, Google it. If you have questions, let me know. If not, we'll see you tomorrow.